that's the hardest part, is like getting that first initial contact, right? Like, what are your connection rates for calling people up on the phone? I mean, they're abysmal. Email's not necessarily responded to. And so you've got people spinning their wheels, trying to get that first touch or engagement. And I think that's where AI can really help drive a lot of efficiency. Like, let's separate the tire kickers from the folks who are actually interested in having a conversation with us, or interested in a piece of inventory we have on our lot, or need help getting service scheduled.
Welcome to Driven Loyalty, the podcast with proven strategies and expert insights tailored for automotive professionals looking to maximize retention, enhance customer experience, and drive sustainable growth. Here's your host, Jason Harris.
Hey, what's going on, Podcast Nation? It is Jason Harris here, and thank you for joining me on another episode of Driven Loyalty, sponsored by Podium. And speaking of Podium, I have the one, the only, I'm told, oh so famous, Ross Tinkham with me. Ross, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm great, dude. How are you?
It's a good intro. Did you like that?
I loved it.
Your team told me to say it.
No, they didn't.
No, they did. Ross, man, I'm so excited to have you here, and I'm just really also just grateful that you guys are allowing us to do the Driven Loyalty podcast. It's been a drive for me. Loyalty is a big topic for me, and I think it's something that's going to fundamentally just change the industry if we embrace the people, the process, and the technology required to make loyal customers. Yep. So thank you. I really appreciate it.
Excited to be here, man. Appreciate the opportunity.
Hey, I like kicking off these podcasts with a little origin story, because I'm just fundamentally fascinated myself, right?
Sure.
I don't think anybody just wakes up one day and goes, hey, I'm going to be in the car business. So Let's start here, all right? Ross, how did you get started in this crazy little world we call the automotive industry?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So I spent the earlier years of my career working for different software startups, some successful, some certainly not successful. But I had a pretty good run actually before automotive, selling into higher ed. So really interesting space. I wouldn't necessarily want to go back to that. But I was looking to get out and sort of break into a new industry. And so I had a former boss I'd worked with who was at Podium. And, at a high level at the time, we were essentially selling a tool that helped dealers and other types of small businesses generate reviews with text messages. And so I took the leap just really based on the relationship I had with that individual. And so when I came to Podium, he's like, all right, like we got some different industries we serve. We're going to put you in auto. And so I was working remotely at the time in Massachusetts. Podium was a teeny tiny company at that point in time, and we didn't have a lot going on in New England. And so I started door knocking dealers and had never really spent, as a first for me. And I fell in love with it along the way, right? I think it's a tight industry. I think there's a lot of, I've seen it go through stages over the past decade or so. But this is where I've been for the past 10 years of my career, and I don't really intend to go anywhere else. I think once you kind of get pulled in, it's hard to get out, and I have no desire to transition to go anywhere else outside of that.
Once it's in your blood, man, like good luck. Like there's been 2 instances where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna step out, maybe take a little break. It's like that episode from Godfather. I'm like, it just sucks. You're right back in. Like I'm just like, but in a good way, right?
In a good way.
Like, a good way. Everyone comes in this business from so many different walks of life. It's such a diverse, industry. Like it's just so fun. I mean, I have dealer friends of mine who have MBAs, and I have some that may have sold weed in high school,
all walks of life, dude.
All walks of life, but if you're willing to put the time and really commit, to a great customer experience and really put be a customer centric company, you can do amazing things, in this industry. So once you're in, man, you're in. So,
well, I think there's a lot of different personalities out there and different types of businesses to serve. And I enjoy working with dealers because you're very direct and to the point about things, right? There's no beating around around the bush, and that just matches up well with my personality and style. So it just ended up clicking for me. So
Well, and I think right now for the industry, and I've talked about this, guys, if you're out there watching and listening, you know I've talked about this many times on our podcast, where I think, vendor partnership is so incredibly important right now.
Yes.
Right? With the advancements in technology, all right, and how it can enhance our people and our processes. Like, it's like when I first started, you could get a vendor for this. I can get my website vendor for that. I get my CRM company for that. And it was like, that's fine. I got what I needed, my tool, I got what I needed. Now, I think it's even more so important that it has to be approached from a partnership perspective because there's so much.
yeah, well, there's so much. And then also just given the current climate in the industry, like there's headwinds. We don't need to go down the list of what those are, but everybody's under pressure. And I think as a vendor, as a partner, if you aren't performing, dude, you're getting cut.
Yeah.
Right. And
No,
so
seriously.
so I think the partnership, the articulation of value, here's what we're doing, right? Like, you got to continue to put that front and center and have clear and consistent communication. And that's where we're really investing and doubling down as we go into next year, is really on like our client success and client services side of the business, to really continue to beef that up and to be there and available for our partners. And so,
Well,
yeah.
and I think the funny thing is there's a lot of correlation to that, because this is what the dealers have to do as well, right? Look, when I first started in the business, it was like, if you met the expectation, you're good. Like, all right, I sold you a car, it was a 4.5 hour process, but I sold you a car, you got the car, deal done, right?
Yep.
Now, like, it's gone beyond that. It's not enough that we just meet the expectation. It's, I think, for even us dealers out there, it's like, how do we have to exceed the expectation?
Correct.
And I think that's where, us leaning on our partners to help us figure out, like, how do we exceed these customers' expectations now, because their expectations high.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
we're in an age now that experience trumps everything. And there's just that constant demand up of going like, all right, I can buy this car at 14 different dealerships for relatively the same price. What's going to be the difference here?
Well, and I think the other component of it is just over the past 5 to 10 years, the progression and change and evolution of consumer buying behavior, right? Like, I want it instant gratification, right? I want it now. When I want to connect with you, you need to be available there for me the same way I go and I can just purchase whatever I want on Amazon, right? Like, whatever you want to call it, the frictionless experience, sort of ease of engagement. Consumers are trained to buy things in a certain way, and so that's what they expect when they purchase a car, right? They're
Well, and I love the fact that you said instant gratification, because I think as an industry, I hear that, and I'm like, I know you dealers out there watching, listening, you're like, the customer's instant, But really, I think what the customer's saying, instant gratification, is I want instant communication.
Correct.
Right? That's really what I'm saying,
Yeah.
right? It's like, I don't want to, and I'll play this out for you, right? Because it still happens today. I don't want to have to go fill out a form. I got to put my first name, my last name, my email address, my phone number, my blood type, my shoe size, my firstborn, just for the opportunity to get a CRM response, an automated response back to me saying, hey, thank you for your inquiry. By the way, we'll get back to you whenever the hell it's convenient for us and it's not convenient for you.
Right.
It's still going on. That, for me, it's one of the first impressions and a full fundamental breakdown. But companies like you guys are shifting that, and I want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, again, the other piece of it is, yes, we say instant gratification, but it's about communicating with your customers the way they want to be communicated with. Predominantly, that's through things like texting and messaging, at least today. It's not to say, the phone is still incredibly important, but they want to be able to engage with you as a business the same way they engage with their peers, is maybe another way to look at it or say it. So,
Well, and I think for dealers out there, you guys have to think like, being able to text a customer, you're in their inner circle now, right? Like, and I think we really have to respect that.
Yeah.
I've seen some dealerships with some amazing processes and some best practices, and then I've seen some that are just treating that beautiful tool that is SMS and that closeness to me, because it is. I mean, look, I probably respond to more text messages than I do actual phone calls anymore.
Yeah.
And I see some dealers still treating it like email blast,
yeah, it needs to be personalized. It can't be spammy, right? Like, those are all certainly things to consider as you think about your engagement and follow-up process with customers. And again, how do you make it personalized and add value at every turn of the conversation? So
So I want to get into our topic about AI.
Sure.
Because I think there's like a perfect segue into it,
Yeah.
right? Because that's the door. That's the key, right? Like, okay, I think you guys out there watching, listening, you may be agreeing with me. Okay, dealers don't want to fill out, or customers don't want to fill out these forms, all right? They want instant gratification, all right? But my team's my team. They can only be doing so much at any given moment. How can I meet the customer where they want to be met every single time, 100% of the time?
Yep.
And I think for me, it's AI, but I'd love to kind of get your take on kind of how that plays out.
yeah, I mean, I think AI has been, all right. So here we are, October, digital dealer. I think if you rewind the clock to January of this year, NADA, when we really came to market with our AI solution, which is really, again, focused around lead engagement, there was a lot of hesitation, right? Like, is it going to say something, that we don't want it to say? Is it going to quote a price that we then have to deal with honoring? Like, there were some horror stories. Or if you rewind the clock even further, that sort of backstop for a dealer has been like bot communication through a chat tool on their website, which essentially was like, hey, thanks for your inquiry. Can I have your name, email address, and phone number? And I'm to have somebody
just another form.
It's just another form fill. And so given the advances that have occurred over the past, 24 months, give or take, AI has started to really become a thing that can drive a human-like conversation and actual engagement with a customer to the degree of a human, if not in many cases better, right? And there's a lot of reasons for that, which is like, hey, it's consistency in the messaging, right?
Consistency,
and your ability as a dealer to put the right guardrails around AI to have it answer the questions you're comfortable answering, but also escalating certain things to you that you want a human to handle. So like, AI is not here to replace anybody's jobs, in my opinion, today, but it can help drive greater efficiency. And all I really mean by that is you have your people focus on the high value tasks that that help drive the organization forward, and let AI do things like qualify your leads, get a conversation going, drive real engagement. And I think the other interesting point, and I'll stop here, is that as you look at how AI can suggest a response to the customer, where it's got all the context, right, the data on that consumer to spin up a really nice, well-crafted message. Yes, AI can send that and handle it on its own, but it's also, I think, starting to be used as more of a training tool for folks in the BDC of like, hey, here's
100%.
here's another way to say this, like, and you can take that and run with it or adjust it. And so, there's all sorts of applications. At the end of the day, again, given the current climate, we're trying to do more with less. Profits and margins are under pressure. And AI, like, although not a cheap tool for a dealer, is a lot less expensive than a headcount.
This episode is brought to you by Podium. So here's a question for you. What would it mean for your dealership if you had one more employee who worked 24/7, never took a break, and was focused solely on turning every lead into a yes, even the after-hour ones, into test drives, a sale, and ultimately more revenue? Well, let's meet Jerry, Podium's brand new AI BDC. Jerry is a lead conversation machine, ready to jump on every lead that comes in instantly. He can answer questions, keep those leads engaged, and even schedule test drives, all without any direct human supervision. And here's the best part. With a seamless handoff to your sales team, your customers will never even know they were interacting with an AI. If you're curious about how Podium's AI BDC can help you move more cars, check it out at podium.com/SWJ. That's for Strategy with Jason. That's podium.com/SWJ, or just hit the link in the show notes below.
Well, and I love the fact that you brought the whole like robotic aspect of it. I mean, I got to be honest with you. I found that, for the last decade, we've slowly moved into sounding more like robots than the actual AI themselves, right? Well, and I get it, because look, we were in the era of CRM, right? Like, it's like day one, I'm going to use this script. Day two, I say this. Day three, I this. And it's just copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste.
Yep.
And I don't know about you, but I think customers can smell a script
100%.
from a mile away.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So, again, I think the ability for conversational AI to really have an engaging conversation with a customer, like, this is real. This is happening. There's lots of dealers who are seeing value in this today, and who are looking at that saying, like, hey, this is a really great tool to ensure we get and a sub 2-minute response time to every lead. And that's a great
Yes.
starting point. Speed to lead's important, but if the engagement is trash, it doesn't really matter. And so it's really about, again, like, how do we have a personalized conversation with a customer? And sure, it's AI doing it. I'll tell you very matter-of-factly today, most customers don't know they're talking to an AI agent if it's good, high-quality AI. And there's a spectrum, there's varying degrees, and like lots of different solutions in play in the market, all with a little bit of a different take. But like if I'm in your shoes, the number one item on my list is like, what is the quality of the conversations happening? Like,
I'm so with you on that.
So-
The quality, and the other one I think for me is the dance. I call it the dance, right? I think, like you said, there's been a lot of advancement in the last 24 months, right? If I go back 24 months, there wasn't much of a dance at all between the salesperson and the AI. It was literally off or on.
Sure.
Off or on, right? And that was it. Now, I'm like, there's a good flow. There's a good dance. It's like if I'm as a salesperson, I mean, it's pretty much like my virtual assistant. Like if I forget maybe to follow up with this person because I got 3-card deep delivery and this deal falling apart and I'm over here for you, it can step in. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's like, and the other thing too, I think about this, and I want to go back because you said qualifying, right? For me as a dealer, that perked my ears up.
Yep.
Right? Because I hired my team because of their ability to have a conversation. All right. But if it takes 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 attempts for them to get into a conversation,
Yeah.
well, it's amazing that I can have a tool do that portion of it for me.
I mean, that's, I guess, and I guess you can validate this for me, but that's the hardest part, is like getting that first initial contact, right? Like, what are your connection rates for calling people up on the phone? I mean, they're abysmal. Email's not necessarily responded to. And so you've got people spinning their wheels, trying to get that first touch or engagement. And I think that's where AI can really help drive a lot of efficiency. Like, let's separate the tire kickers from the folks who are actually interested in having a conversation with us, or interested in the piece of inventory we have in our lot, or need help getting service scheduled. And then AI can, take it as far as scheduling a test drive. And at that point, we're obviously getting the customer in the store, but you can also watch those conversations happen, in our case in Podium, and take over those conversations when you see like, hey, this is a real deal customer. This is something I want to take over, and I want to work with this person at this point. And so it's certainly like there's process changes that have to happen when you're using a tool like this. I think, again, the dealers we've seen most successful are, let's let AI tackle all those leads that are flowing in. Let's let them qualify and act as a bit of a filter, and then have our people focus on what's real.
Well, to me, it's like a double team wrestling match, right? like that's the way I see it.
Yeah. Tag them in.
It's like, okay, got my AI in there. This is gonna do it. Okay. Oh. Tap me in, right? And then I can jump in, all right? And then it's like, oh, okay, all right, maybe I'll kind of back off. But then maybe a few months later, it comes back in and starts re-engaging, and it's like, oh, you reactivated that one. Let me jump back into it, right? I mean, it really does kind of feel like that virtual assistant. But I think the core of the value that a tool like this can bring to to you dealers out there is the ability to, for me, and this is my thesis, is stop counting leads. All right, I have to be honest with you, Ross. I hate leads. I actually despise the word. And maybe because I'm getting a little older, it's quite possible, a little less hair on the top. And so I remember when my dealership got their first website, all right? Like, I remember my first dealer.com, all right, my solution, right? And back then, they didn't call them leads. I have a list of inquiries or form fills. That's what it was.
Okay.
It was like, I don't know at what point in time in our industry, or whose bright idea was it to start calling these things leads, right? Because for me, a lead's not until the point when someone's actually into conversation with someone, right? Because then I'm like, okay, well, that is why I hired my team. So at the point when they get into conversation, now their talent, all right, needs to kick in so that they can turn a meaningful conversation into an opportunity inside the dealership. But I'd love to get your thoughts.
No, I mean, I think that's a great take. I don't know if I've ever thought about it from that perspective. I think, I guess the way we've sort of thought about it, and the feedback we hear from dealers is, well, number one, leads, opportunities, it's down industry wide, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a smaller pool of consumers looking to purchase cars. Interest rates are high, right? Like the average sale price of a new vehicle in the United States is close to $50,000. And so there's just a lot of the market that's out of, they can't buy a new car, right now. And so how do we help you capitalize on those potentially interested folks, leads, opportunities, whatever you want to call it, and ensure that you've got first mover advantage? I mean, all the data we look at points to the business, whether it's a car dealership or another type of local business serving the average, Joe consumer. The first person to interact with them is most likely going to get the business from that customer, and that's not like a bulletproof statement, but it's orders
That's just stats. That's just data.
Orders of magnitude greater. That
Yep.
if you engage with that customer first, they're coming to you.
Engaging, and I love the fact that you actually bring up engaging with the customer, right? Because I think there's a difference between engaging and then meaningful engagement,
Sure.
right? I think right now, for a lot of us out there, we're measuring engagement, and I don't think we're measuring the right number, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so I got 1,300 leads, and I responded to 1,300 leads, and I followed my CRM day 1 through 25, scripted process,
Yeah.
right? So great, you engaged, but was that actually meaningful engagement?
I think that's I think it's great to unpack that. Like, what does engagement actually mean? What do we
Right.
mean? It's a great word. It sounds cool, but like, what does it really mean? Is
Yeah.
it, hey, I reached out to that person and got no response, or is it I had a conversation, and as we move through that conversation, I'm learning about the customer, what their needs are, what they're potentially looking for,
Yes.
like a little bit about their background or history. Do they have kids? Like, who am I really like? It's like what you and I are doing right now. It's having an actual conversation. That is engagement.
100%.
Right,
And
so-
engagement is meaningful, and that can build into the opportunity to actually sell someone a product or service.
Correct.
I kind of look at it like this way. I mean, if I got 1,300 leads, but my team's actively in 350 conversations. As a dealer, if I was to go back and I was a dealer today, all right, that would be my focus. Like, all right, what do I need to train? What from a people, process, and technology perspective do I need to throw at that 350 conversations? Because those are the ones that I'm going to have the highest probability of bringing them out. So we're saying right now that leads are down, inquiries are down, all right? But I don't care about that because I want to know how many conversations
Sure.
we're having, right? Because those can convert ultimately to someone I can
Well,
sell to.
and we also, we're talking about like, hey, new customer entering the business, right? Like no relationship with that person. What about all the people that have,
Good point.
right? Like have purchased a car,
Yes.
have defected from service. Like how are we continuing to engage with those folks? Keep them coming back in, right? Like extending offer, whatever it is. How are we managing that base of current customers to keep them coming back, right? So again, going back
No,
to,
and
to
I like
loyalty.
I like that you brought that up because, I think for a long time our response to that as an industry has and I hate this I call it a dirty word, blast. All right, Ross, I'm serious. I know. You tell me
Just
at any
blast
given,
them, dude.
right? Can you tell me at any given point, like if we told a customer, so you received our text blast, it's like, because that sounds like I want to be blasted. That's exactly what it's still happening today. There's a pandemic, all right, of people out there that still the dealer level. It's a blast. This weekend we're having the biggest sale ever. Even though last weekend I said the same thing, this weekend's the biggest sale. You know what I mean?
Well, it's going to everybody. There's, is there segmentation? Are we, choosing the right audience
No
and sending the right
personalization,
message to those
right?
folks? So,
I think that's one of the advantages when I kind of look at I wanted to get into SMS and text conversation
Sure.
with you and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's just I find the text is like the holy grail of connectivity.
Yeah.
I think the recent stat someone shared with me that was like over 70 some odd % of text messages are replied to, and over 90 some % of them are read.
yeah, it's like close to 97, 98%. It's still, and that's been the stat for 5 years, and it's still the stat today, right?
So we all agree with this. We all agree that this is the stat. But still, today, as we're speaking right now, the primary form of communication out from a dealership?
Email.
yeah.
What the hell?
Yeah, listen, I think there's a place for email. Like if I want to deliver this message to everybody and I'm not going to expect some big return, then great, you use email. But I think texting I would look at is an opportunity to drive that, again, like personalized engagement. And so that all starts with okay, well, who's my audience? Like What are the stages of these different customers in? What do I think intelligently they would be interested in maybe receiving from me that would bring them back in or keep them engaged, right? Whatever the case is. So I would look at texting as a way to, like, number one, segment your audience, craft the right message. By the way, AI can really help with crafting the right message.
I mean, it's not gonna be a blast.
If you're struggling with that, right? Like, kind of, you give it prompts, it can help you craft a message. Like, there's just bring
because
it back.
the AI can have intent. Like,
Yeah.
the AI can be trained to have intent.
Yes.
Which is the intent is to engage, to get into conversation, right?
Yep.
I find, marketers out there, and I'm not knocking on you because I've made the mistake, trust me, because I've done my fair share of blast, all right? But as a marketer, sometimes I find, that we're just trying to just get the message out there. We just need to have as many people out there just know that we have this great big sale coming up, right?
Yeah.
But we got to change our mind around that. Like, I think as marketers now, it's like, it's not just about how many people received our message of this wonderful opportunity that we have for them, but it's like, how many people did we actually connect with and get into conversation with?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it goes back to just knowing your audience. I think the way in which you leverage SMS or texting, not that it's wildly different, but for, if you're selling a Porsche versus selling a mass market brand, I think the way you're going to approach engaging with those customers is pretty different. And I think, a GM of any of those stores would agree with that statement. So, yeah, definitely a place for text. Text marketing is effective, but text marketing is effective when you deliver the right message to the right audience.
Yes.
And ensure that if someone responds back to that text message,
Right, engagement.
You've got someone, you're not just leaving that, they responded, like,
No, thanks for letting me know about the big sale coming up. That's awesome.
Pick that conversation up again. That's where AI, conversational AI, can help. You send a text message out to customers, and they respond back because that's what people do to text messages. Make sure you've got someone there to answer the responses to those messages.
Well, and okay, so I think that kind of leads us into experience. All right.
Sure.
If people want to argue with it or not, I don't think we can really kind of like deny the fact that we are right now in a world where experience trumps everything.
Yep.
I mean, look, when I first started selling cars, I think it was the person, right? Because, you buy a car from me, you go back, hey, Bill, you got a new car? Yeah. Hey, I'm thinking about getting one. Yeah. Call my guy. Call my guy.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I'm not saying that's still not important. I still think it is important.
Yes.
But I think today the experience now trumps it, right? Because, if the experience falls apart, all right, it doesn't matter how good the connection you had with that guy or that gal was, right? It's not there. So this is where I kind of want to go with this conversation is how do you think that we can improve our connection rate? How can we shift, all right, from focusing more on just the conversation as an overall experience rather than just something I have to do as a proverbial checkbox in my CRM?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I mean, I got a couple different ways I could take that. I think, I guess maybe my response or question back to that would be, what is, like, as we're going back to our current customers, like, are you following up with them today in a personalized way?
Yeah.
Right? Just because
Well, it's a process, right?
It's a process thing, and I think is access to data is like you get your hands around your data and you have a good understanding of your customer base, and like again, I just go back to how do we segment to that and drive the right message? Mm-hmm. Like that's probably how I would think about that. I think, again, if we go back to the different tools and technology that are now available to a dealer, like you can do that in a very personalized way and automate it, right? It's not on the salesperson to say, like, hey, like, I mean, I don't know how many salespeople go back and make follow-up calls to their customers from 3 years ago. Probably like not many, right?
Well,
but why?
That 40 car a month, that 30 car a month, person, they do.
They do, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So and this is the thing I think I love about this technology, right? And I also think this is also why it's super important to have a conversation, a loyalty partner, all right, in this, because it is a process, all right? And it has to be, like, an experience doesn't just happen anymore. Like, it's like you have to be intentional about that experience. And I need a partner that's going to help me kind of map out what that process is going to be, because the execution of my process is going to define the experience,
Yeah.
right? And those experiences are made and broken by the littlest bloody things. But
Yeah.
I find it's usually something to do with breakdown in conversation. But I'd love to get your take on that.
No, I think that's part of it. I guess not to get too philosophical, but do you really put your customer first? Do you really is that the center of your universe? And I think if you drive a culture in the business of putting that customer front and center to everything you do, generally you're going to make good decisions from there.
Yes.
Right. And so to me, if you make that person the center of your universe and you build your processes around that and put yourself in the customer's shoes, that's a winning strategy.
That
right?
sounds like customer service. I'm not going to lie. It smells and may taste a little bit like what customer service should be.
Well, yes, at face value for sure. And I think again, maybe let's get practical for a second. What does your customer journey look like, right? Have you secret shopped yourself lately? How long does it take for someone to get back to you? Are they getting back to you through the right channels? What does that follow-up process looks like as that customer's life cycle extends into service? Mm-hmm. So it's probably a lot of work, but number one, I would kind of audit all your shit from top to bottom and then put yourself in the customer's shoes and say, does this feel right? Is this the experience I would want to have
Good point.
with a business that I'm engaging with? So I don't know. That's the starting point. I think, again, AI is a helpful tool in that whole equation, as the rest of your follow-up process and mechanisms are. But at the end of the day, when people reach out to you, they want you to respond to them in a personalized way. And that's, I guess what it's kind of all boils
And I think
down
to effectively execute that at the highest level, it is that balance of people, process, and technology.
Yes.
And finding the right partner that's going to be able to help me with the balance of those three things, I think is so incredibly important.
Yep.
And I think that's one of the things I've been so impressed with you guys and the whole team at Podium, what you guys have been putting together and what you're continuing to put together.
Yep.
Hint, hint, wink, wink. Will be for another podcast. But Ross, look, I know I could easily jam with you for another hour.
Oh, yeah,
on this topic.
Yes.
But I think this is a good point. I think here's what I'd like to do. I think for everybody out there watching and listening right now who would maybe like to connect with you and maybe continue some aspects of this conversation, because I think we visit a few things. I definitely think there needs to be some additional conversation.
Yes.
What's the best way to do so?
Yeah, I mean, so very simply and easily, podium.com is our website. We have a podium.com/automotive. It's all of our dealer facing collateral. Again, we do serve other types of businesses, but head to podium.com. You can easily request some time with one of our account executives who would be happy to go through sort of your solution stack today, understand where you're running into some challenges, and can suggest some ways in which we might be able to support you. So yeah, it's a fascinating time from a technology standpoint. This is not a shiny object, in my opinion, that's going to come in, capture attention and fade away. This is the future, and it's outside of retail automotive. This is just this is big picture stuff. So yeah, I would, if you're not exploring some sort of AI component to your how you're running your operation today, I'd encourage you to start, because your peers sure are. So, and there's a lot of value to be gained.
100%. And it's just going to create efficiencies. I mean, 100%, just going to create efficiencies and just an overall better experience. Hey guys, there's been the show. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this. Hey, the best compliment that you can give myself or Ross over here is share the show. All right, it means a lot. That's honestly the best thing you could possibly do. Is if you guys have a friend or a colleague that could benefit from the conversation we've had today, share the show. It means so much to us. Hey, again, thank you everyone out there for watching and listening. You have yourself an amazing day, man. Thanks, Ross.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to the Driven Loyalty Podcast. Don't forget to like, comment, and share. Happy podcast.